Hi, I'm David Fleming from Disciples Ignited, where we are focused on Jesus, advancing his kingdom, and preparing his disciples. Now, we're going to start out a new series studying on the minor prophets and possibly even going into the major prophets. And I thought that on this first video of this series, I thought it would be a really good opportunity for me to kind of give some understanding on what the prophetical writings are all about in the Old Testament. Now, Jesus himself often referred to what he called the law and the prophets. What's that all about? Well, let me read to you. In Matthew chapter 22, starting with verse 37, it says, Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest command. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." So what did Jesus mean when he said all the law and the prophets? Now, the law, of course, consists of the five books of Moses: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But what about the prophets? Well, the prophets in Jesus' day were 17 books that were divided into two sections in the Jewish Bible. There were the former prophets and what they considered the latter prophets. Now, the former prophets that were spoken of in Jesus' day we consider them history books today. Those would be the books of Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, and 1st and 2nd Kings. But in Jesus' day, they just called them the former prophets. And then there were the latter prophets. Those were the prophetic writings that are known today as the major and the minor prophets. Now, there seems to be some misunderstanding of what we mean by calling the books of the Bible the major prophets and the minor prophets. Some people think, oh, the major prophets are more important. Well, that's not the case. Now, the title major and minor really have nothing to do with the importance of the book. It really has to do with the length of the book. So we see that the major prophetic books were written by Isaiah the prophet, Jeremiah, who wrote both Jeremiah and Lamentations, and then Ezekiel and Daniel. Those are very long books, and so they are called the major prophets. And then there are the minor prophets. Those were written by several different prophets, and they are much shorter in length. There's Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Those are much shorter. Now, there were many other prophets, of course, in the Old Testament, for instance, like Nathan, Elijah, Elisha, which didn't have a book of the Bible which they wrote or that it was attributed to them. But we do have those books written by prophets, some that wrote very long books, which are called the major prophets, and those that wrote very short books, which are called the minor prophets. And today we're going to start out on a series that are going to deal with the minor prophets. But the main thing that we want to do as we start out on this series and study these books of the Bible, we're going to be looking for Jesus. Because whenever you study the Word, you need to be focused on, what does this teach me? How does this point me to Jesus? Oh, because remember, Jesus is the Word. And so everything in the Word is going to be pointing to Jesus. Sometimes it's very flagrant. It's very apparent on what it's telling us about Jesus. Other times it seems to be more shrouded. It's hidden. But the wise Bible student is going to always have their spiritual eyes seeking for Jesus. So join with me tomorrow as we start out on the series where we're going to be studying about Hosea, the minor prophet book of Hosea. So we'll join together tomorrow.